My mother-in-law set my wedding dress on fire right before the altar. An hour later, she was begging for mercy on her knees before 300 guests. The silence of the bedroom was shattered by the sharp ring of the phone. The clock on the nightstand read 3:47 a.m. The screen lit up with St. Michael's Hospital. My heart clenched. I immediately thought of Rose, Michael's aunt, who had been fighting for her life in the ICU for 3 weeks, hooked up to machines whose beeping sounds haunted me since my last visit. "Hello?" My voice trembled as I tried not to wake Michael, whose warm breath grazed my shoulder. "Good evening. This is Nurse Patricia from the oncology ward. Are you Emily Johnson, Michael Harris's fiancée?" The voice on the other end was weary but gentle, with a slight rasp betraying the late-night shift. "Yes, that's me. What's happened to Rose?" I held my breath, gripping the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. "I'm so sorry. Rose Carter passed away at 2:30 a.m. She asked me to tell you she's sorry about the family finances. She said you'd understand." I didn't understand. The nurse's words echoed in my head as I stared at Michael, sleeping peacefully. His serene face contrasted with the storm brewing inside me. Rose wasn't just his aunt. She was my sanctuary in the Harris family, the only one whose hugs felt genuine, whose jokes made me laugh until I cried. She called me her girl and promised to be at our wedding, even if she had to hold a nurse hostage. And now she was gone. A week after the funeral, I sat in the living room, sorting through a box of Rose's belongings that Michael had brought from her house. Among old photos and letters, I found a thick envelope labeled, "For Emily, open only after my death." With trembling fingers, I tore it open. Inside were bank statements, medical documents, and a letter written in the shaky handwriting of a dying woman. But what shook me to my core were the checks signed by Dixon Harris, my future mother-in-law. $5,000. Wedding flowers for Emily, $8,000. Dress for the mother of the groom, $12,000. Ceremony decorations, $15,000. Miscellaneous wedding expenses. Total, $40,000. Money raised by the family to save Rose's life. Money that could have given her a chance. Dixon had stolen it to throw a lavish wedding, my wedding, to impress her wealthy friends. Rose died thinking her family couldn't afford to save her, and Dixon spent the money on orchids and crystal chandeliers. I clenched my fists, feeling anger boil inside me like molten lava. In that moment, I swore Dixon would pay for this, and she would pay publicly in front of everyone who thought she was a paragon of virtue. It all began a year and a half ago at the Golden Oyster restaurant, where Michael and I were celebrating our engagement. Crystal chandeliers cast a soft glow on snow-white tablecloths, and the scent of truffles lingered in the air. I couldn't take my eyes off the diamond ring on my finger. Modest but precious, chosen by Michael with love. Joy filled me until she walked in. Dixon Harris, 52, CEO of a thriving PR firm, widow of a millionaire. Her black couture dress hugged her figure like a second skin, and her heels clicked on the marble floor like a metronome counting down to something inevitable. She moved with the grace of a panther, and the entire restaurant seemed to hold its breath. Waiters froze, guests turned their heads, even the music seemed to quiet. "Michael, darling!" Her voice was melodic, but laced with a steely edge, like the clink of a glass before a toast hiding a threat. She leaned down to kiss her son on the cheek, leaving a mark of crimson lipstick like a brand of ownership. Then her gaze fell on me. The room felt 10 degrees colder. Her emerald green eyes, cold as gemstones, scanned me from head to toe, from my simple blue dress to the slightly tousled curls I'd tried to tame before dinner. I felt like a specimen under a microscope. My flaws about to be exposed. So, this must be Emily, she said, pronouncing my name as if it tasted bitter. Michael's told me so much about you. I smiled, trying to hide my nerves, and extended my hand. She ignored it, instead pulling a small magnifying glass from her purse and demanding, "Show me the ring." I hesitantly stretched out my hand. Dixon took my palm in her cold fingers, her long, red-lacquered nails grazing my skin. She examined the diamond with the air of someone inspecting a cheap trinket from a flea market. She said finally, the sound carrying the weight of a verdict. "Michael, we need to talk. Alone." "Mom, please," Michael began, his voice shaking with irritation, but she was already pulling him toward the bar, like a child who dared not disobey. I watched as Dixon whispered to him, her hand resting on his shoulder, her eyes occasionally flicking to me as if to say, "You don't belong here." Michael shook his head, his face reddening with anger. When they returned, he was darker than a storm cloud, his fists clenched under the table. "Emily," Dixon began, settling into her chair with the grace of a queen, adjusting her pearl necklace. "I must be frank. When Michael told me about you, I was surprised by his choice." "Mom!" Michael slammed his fist on the table, making the glasses clink. "Enough! Let me finish, darling," she said without looking at him, her voice calm but sharp as a blade. "Emily, you seem like a sweet girl, but our family, we have certain standards. Reputation, connections, a business built over decades." My face flushed. "And I don't meet those standards?" My voice wavered, but I tried to keep it steady. Dixon smiled, her eyes as cold as ice. "Let's just say you're from a different world. A school teacher, a $35,000 salary, a family from, how should I put it? A modest neighborhood. Can you keep up with our circle? Gala dinners, charity balls, corporate receptions. It's a world where every step is scrutinized." "I love Michael," I said, squeezing his hand under the table. "I don't need balls to be happy." "Love is wonderful," she replied, leaning closer, the heavy floral scent of her perfume overwhelming. "But love won't help when Michael's friends whisper behind your back, when his career stalls because of an unsuitable wife." Michael shot to his feet, his chair scraping the floor. "Mom, that's too far. Emily is my choice, and I want you to let you insult her." Dixon leaned back, her smile widening but devoid of warmth. "Very well, darling. I just want you both to understand what you're getting into." She pulled a photo from her purse and placed it on the table. It showed a stunning blonde in a designer gown, her smile radiant like a movie star's. "This is Savannah Preston," Dixon said. "Senator's daughter. She and Michael were the perfect couple. Everyone said so." "We broke up 3 years ago," Michael said flatly, his jaw tight. "Your mistake," Dixon snapped. "But Savannah's still single. She was asking about you recently." I stared at the photo, feeling my confidence melt like wax under a flame. Savannah was everything I wasn't. Refined, elegant, born into Dixon's world. As we prepared to leave, Dixon grabbed my arm. Her nails dug into my skin, leaving red crescent marks. "Emily," she whispered, so softly Michael couldn't hear. "You seem smart. Smart enough to know this world isn't for you. Walk away while you can. or I'll make sure you do." Her words echoed in my mind all night, a venomous whisper. Dixon didn't attack openly. She was too clever for that. Instead, she launched a campaign of small, stinging jabs, each designed to make me feel like an outsider, unworthy. It started with family events, or rather, my exclusion from them. "Oh, Emily, dear," Dixon would exclaim at every meeting, her voice as sweet as molasses but her eyes cold. "I completely forgot to invite you to Aunt Margaret's brunch. It was just for close relatives, you understand." But then she'd accidentally send me photos from those brunches via Instagram. There they were. Michael's cousins, his uncle with the perpetually red nose, even distant relatives I'd met once. Everyone but me. The captions read, "Harris family reunion, #traditions." I felt invisible, erased from their world. "Mom, why wasn't Emily invited?" Michael would ask, his brows knitting into a hard line. "Darling, it was spontaneous," she'd reply with an innocent smile, adjusting her pearl necklace. "I didn't want Emily to feel out of place with our particular traditions." But traditions were just an excuse. Dixon made it clear, I wasn't part of their family. I never would be. Then came the encounters with Savannah Preston, Michael's ex. One day, we went to the tennis club, and there she was, like magic, a tall, elegant blonde in a pristine white athletic outfit, her hair gleaming like a golden crown under the sun. "What a coincidence!" Dixon chirped, beaming as if she'd won the lottery. "Savannah, darling, you remember Michael? You two were so great at doubles." I sat on the bench as Michael and Savannah traded shots on the court. Her laughter rang like a bell, and every time she touched his arm, congratulating him on a good serve, a sharp pang stabbed my chest. Savannah was perfect, refined, confident, born for this world. Her movements were fluid, like a dance, her smile a weapon I couldn't dodge. "Emily doesn't play tennis," Dixon explained to the other club members nearby. "She's from a simpler background, but that's no trouble." Her voice dripped with fake sympathy, but I heard the mockery. The club members nodded, casting curious glances that made me want to sink through the floor. Gifts were another weapon. For my birthday, Dixon gave me a book, Etiquette for Beginners, and a certificate for a course on social graces, wrapped in glossy paper with a gold bow. "I thought this would help you feel more confident at our events," she said, smiling as if doing me a favor, but her eyes said, "You'll never be good enough." For Christmas, I got a gift certificate to a salon. "Mary at the salon is a genius," Dixon said, adjusting her flawless manicure. "She can work with your hair and maybe suggest ways to hide certain flaws." I gripped the certificate so tightly it crumpled. "Thank you," I forced out, my cheeks burning with humiliation. Michael tried to smooth things over. "Mom's trying to be nice," he'd say when I complained, his hand gently touching my shoulder. "She's just not good at being tactful." But I saw the truth. Dixon didn't want me to feel accepted. She wanted me to feel unworthy, an alien in their world of crystal and gold. When we announced our wedding, Dixon offered to organize it. "It's my gift to you," she exclaimed, hugging us both, her perfume wrapping around me like a noose. Michael was thrilled, his eyes shining like a child's with a new toy. "Mom, that's too much," he said, beaming. "Not another word," she cut him off, her smile sharp as a knife. "I have connections with the best planners. This wedding will be the event of the year." I was grateful. Planning a wedding intimidated me, and my teacher's budget couldn't afford extravagance. But I soon realized I'd trusted a devil in a designer dress. Dixon took control of every detail. She chose my dress, modest, with a high collar and long sleeves, like something a nun would wear. "It highlights your simplicity," she said, her lips curving into a smile that sent chills down my spine. Her dress was different, bright red, with a plunging neckline, designed to draw every eye. The flowers were gold and red, her favorite shades. The menu featured dishes I couldn't pronounce: foie gras, truffle risotto, oysters with champagne. The music was classical, her passion, with a cello that sounded like a funeral march to me. "Emily, I have more experience with these things," she'd say when I tried to object, her voice soft but commanding. "Trust me." The guest list was the final straw. "I've invited 200 people from our family," she announced, scrolling through her tablet like a general planning a battle. "Business associates, friends, important people." "And my guests?" I asked, my throat tightening. "How many do you have? 20, 30? "We'll find space for them," she said, as if doing me a favor. "I wanted to invite my friends, colleagues," I started, but she cut me off. "Emily, dear, be realistic. This is an expensive event. Each guest is a cost, and honestly, your friends might feel uncomfortable among our crowd. Maybe we can throw a separate party for them? Something simpler?" Her words hit like a slap. She was turning my wedding into her spectacle, where I'd be an invisible figure in a drab dress, surrounded by her friends who'd look at me with pity or contempt. Rose died on a Thursday. At the funeral, Dixon stayed aloof, her grief rehearsed like a stage performance. She handed out business cards for her company, talking about a new charity project while I stood by Rose's coffin, clutching Michael's hand. Her indifference cut like a knife. On Monday, Rose's lawyer called. "Miss Johnson, Rose left you some documents. She asked me to give them to you personally and said you'd know what to do." I met him at his downtown office, where the smell of coffee mingled with the scent of old books. He handed me a thick envelope labeled, "For Emily, open only after my death." My fingers shook as I tore it open. Inside was a letter and a stack of documents, bank statements, medical bills, receipts. I started reading, and the world around me collapsed. "Dear Emily, if you're reading this, I couldn't tell you the truth in person. I hope to recover, but the cancer was too strong. Dixon hates you. I saw how she looks at you, how she talks about you behind your back. But I didn't realize how far she'd go until it was too late. 6 months ago, doctors offered an experimental treatment that could have saved my life. The family started a fundraiser. Michael contributed $10,000, his father $5,000, even distant relatives pitched in. Dixon took charge of the fund, assuring us she knew how to manage the money. I trusted her. That was my mistake. She stole $40,000 from the fund for your wedding. The flowers, decorations, catering, all paid with my money. She wanted to throw a spectacle to boost her reputation. And I died thinking my family couldn't raise enough. Emily, you're kind and strong. Dixon is poison. She'll destroy you and Michael if you don't stop her. Use these documents. Show everyone who she is. With love, Rose." I read the letter over and over until tears blurred the ink. The bank statements confirmed everything. $63,000 raised, $40,000 spent on the wedding, leaving $16,000, far short of the $50,000 needed for treatment. I called the hospital, my fingers trembling as I dialed. Dr. Richardson, this is Emily Johnson, Rose Carter's niece-in-law. Tell me about the treatment you offered her."
"Emily, I'm so sorry,"
the doctor said, his voice heavy. "Rose had a good chance. The treatment cost $50,000, but we were told the family couldn't raise the funds." I hung up and sobbed, burying my face in my hands. Rose could have lived. She could have been at our wedding, laughing, dancing, holding our future children. But Dixon stole her chance for her own vanity. In that moment, I decided Dixon would answer for this. But I needed more evidence. The next 2 weeks, I became a shadow of myself, consumed by a need for justice. I wasn't a detective. I was a school teacher used to handling playground disputes, not financial crimes. But I had Rose's documents and a resolve like steel in my core. I started recording conversations with Dixon, hiding my phone in my purse or pocket. She was so confident in her power that she didn't hide her disdain, though her words were carefully chosen, always teetering on the edge of candor. One day, she invited me to her mansion for a final dress fitting. A sprawling estate with marble floors and paintings worth more than my yearly salary. We sat in her living room, where the scent of her perfume mixed with the aroma of fresh-cut lilies.
"Emily, we need to talk,"
she said, sipping wine and settling into her favorite velvet armchair. Her eyes gleamed like a cat toying with a mouse.
"About what?"
I asked, activating the recorder, keeping my voice steady. "The wedding? I've poured everything into making it the event of the year. The guests are the cream of society. It'll strengthen my business, my connections. You understand how this works, don't you?"
"I do,"
I said, anger simmering inside. "And am I expendable in this project?" She smiled, her lips curving like a blade.
"You're sweet, Emily, but Michael deserves more. He'll realize that eventually."
I clenched my fists under the table. "What about Rose?" Her smile flickered like a candle in a draft.
"Rose was sick. No one could save her."
"But money could have," I blurted, unable to hold back. Dixon paled but quickly recovered. "You're upset. That's understandable. Let's talk about the dress." I knew she'd never confess, but I had Rose's letter, the documents, and the recordings. It was enough. I dug deeper. I asked a friend who worked at a bank to check the fund's transactions. She confirmed. Payments to wedding vendors came through Dixon's personal account. Every check bore her signature. Every dollar stolen from Rose. The wedding day arrived like a storm after a calm. My hands shook as I touched up my makeup in the bride's room. Dixon, in her red dress, shone among the guests, accepting compliments like a queen on her throne. My dress, drab gray, long-sleeved, made me a shadow in her light. An hour before the ceremony, I went to the bride's room to put on my dress. It hung on a rack, a symbol of my defeat. Plain, lifeless, chosen by Dixon to emphasize my simplicity. I ran my fingers over the fabric, a lump rising in my throat. The door opened, and Dixon entered, holding a glass of champagne. Her eyes glinted like a predator sensing prey. "Emily, are you sure you're ready for this marriage?" she asked, her voice soft but venomous.
"More than ever,"
I replied, slipping my hand into my pocket to turn on the recorder. She approached the dress, her fingers brushing the hem.
"This dress, so plain, like you."
Suddenly, she pulled a small silver lighter from her purse, engraved with her initials. A click, and a tiny flame flickered in her hand. She held it to the dress's hem. The fabric caught fire, flames licking the lace, the room filling with the smell of burning cloth. "Oops! How clumsy of me!" Dixon laughed, stepping back. "The dress is ruined. Maybe it's a sign?" I screamed, lunging for the dress, but the flames devoured the hem. Maids rushed in with a fire extinguisher, but the dress was destroyed. Black stains and holes turned it to rags. Dixon stood aside, sipping her champagne, her smile triumphant. "Don't worry, dear," she said as I choked back tears. "We'll find something suitable." The planner brought a spare dress, a simple white gown that hung on me like a sack, but I gritted my teeth. Dixon wouldn't break me. Not today. The ceremony went flawlessly, despite the ache in my chest. Michael looked at me with such love that I almost forgot the dress, but the anger burned inside, like embers ready to ignite. At the reception, as guests sat at tables adorned with orchids paid for with Rose's blood, I asked for the microphone. My voice trembled, but I forced myself to stand tall. "Friends, I want to thank you for being here," I began, holding a folder of documents, "and especially Dixon, who organized this wedding." The guests applauded. Dixon smiled, raising her glass, her ring sparkling under the chandeliers. But I continued. "But I have to tell the truth. This wedding was paid for with money stolen from Rose Carter's treatment fund, Michael's aunt." The room fell silent. I opened the folder and turned on the projector. Bank statements, checks, and Rose's letter appeared on the screen. Dixon spent $40,000 on flowers, decorations, and catering while Rose died, believing her family couldn't afford her treatment. Gasps filled the room. Michael went pale, his eyes darting between me and his mother. Dixon leapt to her feet, her glass crashing to the floor. "That's a lie!" she screamed, her voice shaking with rage. I played the recording of her words. "You're sweet, Emily. But Michael deserves more. He'll realize that eventually." The room buzzed, the guests' whispers rising like a storm. "You set my dress on fire to humiliate me," I said, locking eyes with her. "But that's nothing compared to what you did to Rose." Michael stood, his face white as a sheet. "Mom, is this true?" Dixon trembled, her perfect mask cracking. "Michael, I wanted your wedding to be perfect." She collapsed to her knees, her red dress crumpling like a wilted flower. "Forgive me, Michael. I did it for you." But Michael turned away. "You stole Rose's life," he said, his voice quiet but heavy as a verdict. The guests whispered, their gazes filled with shock and disdain. Dixon sobbed, but no one came to her aid. Her reputation, her throne, crumbled in an instant. After the wedding, Michael and I escaped to a quiet island for our honeymoon, where the sound of waves drowned out the echoes of the past. Dixon vanished from the city, her company lost clients, and her name became synonymous with betrayal. Michael cut ties with her, his heart broken but his choice clear. Me. We started a new life, knowing the truth had set us free. Rose couldn't be at the wedding, but her letter gave me the strength to protect our love. Every night, I looked at the stars and whispered, "Thank you, Rose. We did it." Did you like the story? Write your opinion in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next interesting story. See you tomorrow.